As the protest of high-handedness of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad deepened yesterday, despite the disbandment of the police tactical outfit, President Muhammadu Buhari has assured Nigerians that all those responsible for misconduct or wrongful act will be brought to justice. The president said the disbandment of the organization was only the first step in a wholesome reformation of the police force. But as the president made his feeling known in Abuja, many protesters were killed in Lagos, with the authorities confirming the death of a policeman and a civilian in the Surulere area of the city. The president said he has directed an immediate investigation into the circumstances surrounding the killings of Isiaka Jimo, one of the NSAS protesters who was shot dead in Ogbomosho, Oyo State on Saturday. Inspector General of Police Muhammad Adamu had on Sunday ordered immediate dissolution of the SARS unit following escalating protests around the country. Coming to you first, Tundun. What's your take on all of this? The president has finally spoken yesterday.
Yes, he spoke while launching PES, the Presidential Youth Empowerment Scheme. He spoke on Monday when the protests had begun since Thursday. He did tweet about it. But like I was saying yesterday, we have a president who is reticent. He's not some kind of warm and fuzzy paterfamilias. He's not going to do fireside chats like FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt in America, or Eisenhower. That's not his nature. I was dismayed that he sort of did tack on his address about SARS to this presidential launch. For me, it seems almost robotic. This is scheduled in my diary. I'm launching this youth empowerment scheme, launching 774,000 jobs around the country. So while I'm doing that, I can address SARS. There'll be no break in regular programming. Do you know what I mean? To address this burning national issue. But I guess we have to accept, as we all accept each other, we accept our political leaders for who they are. This is his character. And as a nation, we need to start to look at exactly what we want from our leaders. If you want a responsive leader, then you elect one going forward. Things like this are important. I feel that there should have been a break from normal transition. I feel like the president should have down tools and said, the youth in this country is so aggrieved by SARS. Let's have a dialogue rather than this sort of gesture. But I wasn't expecting anything else. And as for the unfortunate deaths, why should anybody die in a peaceful protest? You talked about the gentleman in Ogbomosho who was killed. I'm not entirely sure that he was a protester. Yeah, because from the reports, it was a passerby who was shot dead. He did nothing to deserve that. And also what happened yesterday, what's been reported, there was a death in Surulere, but apparently the police is saying that the protesters were also armed and he was shot by a protester. A likely story. This only gives fuel to the fire that's raging at the moment. Imagine being murdered in a protest about police brutality by the police. It's just a really sickening irony.
Dr. Abati?
Well, you know, the protesters, after the Inspector General of Police came up with a 5-point plan to address the disbandment of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, the protesters came up with their own 5 demands also. The 5 demands that they read out to the governor of Lagos State yesterday in the Lekki area. And one of the demands, of course, is that the president should take more serious action about what was going on. And so perhaps the president was responding to that, demand in a way, because all through yesterday, even on this program, we brought up the issue that, look, this had become such a serious national issue that will require not just the personal attention of the president, but the president being seen to be on top of it and to be addressing the people of Nigeria. So he must have been advised to seize the opportunity of the Presidential Youth Empowerment Scheme event to first address that, urgent national issue, because it will have looked really bad for him to go ahead and have that elaborate ceremony, and he would not, as president, say one or two things about a national crisis. Now, let's take a look at the content of his statement with regard to this NSAS protest. He says he has ordered investigation into what is happening. Well, we hope that that investigation will be very thorough and comprehensive. We hope that that investigation will cover again reports of police brutality in the course of the protests. These protesters in many parts of the country, they were brutalized by the police, and that in itself contributed to the escalation. And the policemen who decided to turn the gun on their protesters, they too should also be identified. He says they will be brought to justice. We hope that that would happen. Because there were killings, not just in Ogbomoso. He singled out the young man, Jimoh Isiaka. There were killings also in Ughelli, in Lagos, and in other parts of the country. Now, the president also said that disbandment of the SARS is the first step towards a comprehensive reform of the police. Yes, Nigerians have been debating police reform for years. If this protest will now provide an opportunity for that comprehensive reform, that will be helpful. However, maybe the reform should even start at the level of nomenclature. Yesterday, I was saying that there was a time, there was a conversation around the name of the Nigeria Police, that it should be changed from Nigeria Police Force to Nigeria Police Service. But somebody told me that that didn't quite happen. Well, if it has not happened, I think the word force, because I saw even in the president's statement referring to the police as police force.
It's awful.
It should not be a police force.
It shouldn't.
It should be police service.
Yes.
So maybe one of the low-hanging fruits is to start at that level, so that mentally, psychologically, the average Nigerian policeman will know that that uniform that he wears and the gun that he's carrying, the emphasis is on service, not force. Yeah. Now, one other demand by the protesters is that the president should issue an executive order. Well, I'm critical of executive order, but I try to double check with civil servants. And, I was told that civil servants have faith in circulars. Unless you direct a civil servant, he will not take any step. And that what happens is that if the president issues a formal executive order, then that will generate circulars down the line within the system to say, oh, this is what the president has directed. And that's when you will see anybody making a move. Civil servants will not respond to presidential speech. The president can give speeches from now till tomorrow, except there is something put in black and white and specific directives as to what he wants. Nothing will happen. And we hope that we will not just stay at the level of speech making. We will take a step further and make sure that certain directives are carried out within the system, either through administrative circulars or executive order. What Nigerians want to see is seriousness. The last part of it is the embarrassing fact that even yesterday, there were pictures and videos being circulated, still showing some characters around the country wearing SARS uniform. I thought they said the Inspector General of Police had now formally disbanded the Special Anti-Robbery Squad. What are they still doing on the streets? So if the president speaks and the Inspector General of Police carries out his instruction, is it an ordinary anti-robbery squad policeman that will be defying the president of Nigeria? Because that in itself is an act of defiance. And such officers who are disobeying the government of Nigeria should be identified. And if they are found on the streets, still provoking the people, then something should be done about them.
Well, we saw it, didn't we? After SARS was disbanded by the Inspector General of the Police, Arise News saw firsthand how those instructions mean nothing to these people.
And that's true.
And there's executive orders, I agree with you. It needs to be enshrined in legislation. It's a good start, but we need legislation.
And only to think they said training for the new units will start next week. That's what the IG says. All right, that's all on Headline News. Take a short break now. When we return, we'll have the trio of Rotus, Michael, and Adesola to give us updates on Africa business, global business, COVID-19. Stay with us. All right, welcome back to the morning show right here on the Arise News channel. Rotus, over to you. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Tundun, and good morning, Doctor. We kick things off with Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala paying a visit to Aso Rock to meet with the president. The president tweeted his support. There it is. Says, we will do all that we can to ensure that Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala emerges as the Director General of the WTO. She deserves this. I will continue to seek support from world leaders on her behalf. Whatever phone calls need to be made, whatever letters need to be sent, I will do it. That's very, very strong support there from the president. As we all know, of course, it's down to Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala and Yoon Myung-hee of South Korea. The last two candidates that are left. We're expecting a decision to be made, I believe, the first week of November. And so, in the very same vein, in the same way that the president has, showed his support for Nigerians in top positions, it's the same thing that he's expressing here, and we'll see how far that goes. But pretty strong for what he's saying, that phone calls, letters, whatever it is, she has his full support. So fingers crossed, we'll see how that works out. Over to power. Festus Keyamo has led a ad hoc committee on the increase in electricity tariffs between the federal government and Labour. There's his tweet here. It said Labour and government have adopted resolutions of the ad hoc committee I chaired. He's the chair of the committee. Highlights include using VAT proceeds to temporary subsidized tariffs, whilst my committee will work for 2 more months to resolve other issues that may substantially affect tariff adjustment. He's, of course, the Minister of State for Labour and Employment. Look at his next tweet here. Other immediate reliefs include provision of 6 million free meters to Nigeria. This raised eyebrows. Salary protection for electricity workers, mandatory refund for any overbilling during system transition by the discos, monthly publication by NERC of allowed billing of unmetered customers. And this is backed, of course, by a communique that was released. I've looked at part 1 of that. I've just highlighted it here. Again, this is coming out of Labour, the NLC and the TUC threatening a strike over the increase in of service-related tariffs. So if you looked at what's been highlighted, it said cumulatively, the per kilowatt hour relief that we provided to customers in bands A, B, and C is 10 naira 20 kobo per kilowatt hour, which will be distributed across the bands. The relief will be in place for 2 to 3 months. That actually expires December 31st. So I understand, I think cumulatively they mean that they will put it all together for the next 3 months until the end of the year, and then that relief will be put in place. So that will be a deduction of that amount. Now, next is this matter of 6 million meters. They're saying that if you look at the top there, it says the cost of the meters shall be recovered from the discos. It's understood that the Central Bank of Nigeria has provided funding for these meters. Then, of course, local procurement of meters, they're supposed to provide jobs, so the local manufacturers are expected to be able to produce the 6 million meters. Salary protection for electricity workers, then mandatory monthly publication of the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission of allowed billings in Naira for unmetered customers. So that's supposed to be capped. So remember, that was this instruction that was put out in order to shield Nigerians from being unfairly, pretty much gouged by estimated billing. So they are capping it, and they want to have a monthly publication of what that cap is. And then at the bottom there, mandatory refund for any overbilling during their system transition. So if you're, if you're using estimated billing, if you're overbilled, they're saying that there's going to be a mandatory refund. This is what has been put in place. Although I've talked to a few insiders in the power sector, and they're saying that those free meters, they aren't exactly free, but we'll see how that works out. This is the Minister of Power, Engineer Saleh Maman. He said to ensure that Nigerians only pay for the energy they consume, a metering scheme that will see 6 million free meters distributed to Nigerian homes and businesses set to commence this quarter. Then he says, good morning, I have a productive week. The estimated backlog is supposed to be 6 million, but some Nigerians have already paid for this. Remember, I talked about being on a town hall meeting hosted by the NERC, which has been going on weekly, where a number of people were complaining about money they've already paid for these meters. They haven't gotten them. So, what's going to happen? Are they going to refund the money back to them? Again, the insiders that I've talked to are saying that this is not free. So, we'll see how this works. I don't know if that is language that is supposed to just appease Labour. Finally, on cable TV, MultiChoice, John Ugbe is the CEO of MultiChoice Nigeria. He's saying that the PAYG's pay as you go is not feasible. He met with another committee that was put together to look at the increase in prices of the premium package for DSTV. And he met with the committee and said, hey, look, telcos can do pay as you go, because there's a two-way system and it's start and stop. If I place a call to Dr. or Tundun or Rufai, or send a text to Dr. Tundun or Rufai, it's, it's a text message. It starts and stops. So if I'm doing pay as you go, you can measure that and pay. But for cable television, they're saying that he's saying it's not feasible. You can't really measure when, I don't know, people have pushed back on that, saying that that's not really true, but I have to do a little more research to see if that's possible, because I can't think of where there's a pay-as-you-go cable system around the world. I have to do some more research on that.
It's not pay-as-you-go. How have StarTimes managed? Because they have a flexible option, don't they?
StarTimes is, okay, sorry, I thought you were talking about GoTV, but no, I'm not really familiar if StarTimes uses a pay-as-you-go. Again, it's how you...
They have a flexible arrangement. You can pay per day, per week.
Right, but you see, that's measured by your, as you've mentioned, day or a week. So within a 24-hour period, you just get your service, or a week or a month. Again, I think what they're talking about with pay-as-you-go, what John Ugbe is talking about is per use, as in, if I watch TV for 3 hours, then I pay for 3 hours.
No, I don't want to get bogged down in the semantics.
Right.
The point of it is being fair to customers. So let's not get bogged down in the theory of whether pay as you go is possible as a model. The point being made is that there are other flexible options that could be presented to the Nigerian consumer.
Well,
there
I think
are,
the issue is this.
It's tiered, right? So if MultiChoice has a 2,000 package, I don't want to start going over, but they've got packages that are tiered depending on how many channels you receive. So
Rotus,
again,
I think the thing we should insist upon is that the responsibility of government or the regulatory agencies to allow more competition, to allow choice. If John Ugbe of MultiChoice is saying that pay-per-view will not fit into their business model, and that may even, at the end of the day, be more expensive for the customer, then there are other options. There is Kwese TV, there is GoTV, which you have mentioned, but there are other players. There are other players. There is StarTimes, so the customer can make a choice. Part of the problem previously was that MultiChoice was enjoying some kind of monopoly. And we'll see, of course, because you recall that with regard to telecoms, there was a time that I think it was MTN and Airtel insisted that pay-per-second billing was not possible.
Exactly.
And they said, no, it won't happen.
Exactly.
But when Glo came, Glo introduced a pay-per-second. The market determined the model. At the end of the day, Airtel and MTN, they also joined Glo in making a pay-per-second option available to Nigerians.
As Nelson Mandela said, it's always impossible until it's done.
Yeah, that's it. Right. Now, on Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, I think it's commendable, and we have to thank the president for, again, promising that he will do everything possible to ensure that our country stands by her. And I think that was a very warm encounter. The president even said, don't worry, I did it for Akerejola at the AFDB, and you too, I will also stand by you through this process. You are hardworking, and although you people work for a PDP government, you are highly talented, and the response from Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala was also excellent. He said, well, my president, I'm counting on you. Please do it for me. I'm proud of my country. I think that's really, a very good encounter there. And the president, we encourage him to keep his promise, to make phone calls, write the necessary letters. I mean, 2 major positions coming to Nigeria in 1 year. Right. That would be an achievement, not just for the individuals involved, but also for Nigeria and for President Buhari personally.
That makes a lot of sense. And Dr. Abati, one we don't really talk about, Afrexim Bank, Professor Rama. And
yes.
So three great positions. Afrexim, Professor Rama, Takumi additional, and
as for those free meters, there's no such thing. I don't believe it. Okay. That will be a story for another day.
We'll move on to Michael Wilson now. Great to have you, Michael, from London.
Yes, good morning. I've got an interesting one for you to start with. You're going to read that China's really bounced back in terms of its balance of trade. Actually, that isn't true. There's some very interesting statistics here. So the September surplus, which was expected to be $60 billion, has actually fallen to 37 billion. Exports rose 9.9%. We expected that. But the shocker is the imports. It was 0.5% was forecast. In fact, imports rose by over 15%. And most of the jump appears to have been in massive increases in iron ore, copper ore, and oil imports. Now, low oil prices will have prompted a bit of that, but iron ore prices and copper prices have been actually quite high. They are priced in dollars. That will have made them much more expensive. But there's a massive jump in tonnage reported. And either this means two things, and this is mystifying the markets right now. Either the Chinese are very, very optimistic about domestic growth this year, but people are saying that won't necessarily happen. Or reasons better known to themselves, they're actually stockpiling. Now, that is the big mystery. They've had a verbal embargo on Australian coal. That was announced this morning. But they aren't actually bringing Australia into a full-blown trade war because they're still importing ore from there. So a difficult one, really. I don't know what the answer is. I pose these are questions that people in the commodity markets will be asking themselves through today and into tomorrow. I hope so. Thus, Asian markets bit cautious really today, and Hong Kong shut because of a cyclone, and that's where we go with that. Now, as far as US is concerned, yesterday, both the markets there, the normal ones and the high-tech ones, seem to be predicating on the belief that whoever actually wins the presidential election, and we know about the polls, you've already done that, there'll be a sizable fiscal stimulus package actually coming down the pipe at some stage. Now, that is pretty sensible, one would imagine. However, Joe Biden ahead in the polls as he is, it's likely that there'll be more red tape and so on, more regulation could hit the big tech sector disproportionately. But investors seem content to ignore that for the time being. Thus, a big rise in techs yesterday. And of course, we've got this Apple thing. Now, I don't want to start advertising for Apple, but the expected announcement of a new 5G iPhone, which Amazon and Amazon as well, both of those things actually rising. Amazon because of its Prime Day promotion, which is the 13th and the 40th. Yeah, it's tomorrow and Thursday, isn't it? Their Prime Day, and both of those actually, because there's loads of stuff which is going to be cheap there if you like that kind of shopping. Both the Nasdaq and the S&P 500 into record highs. Here's another one which I'm not sure people have actually paid attention to this at the moment. I don't know whether you saw it, but Johnson & Johnson have actually withdrawn their COVID-19 vaccine in a pause due to what they describe as an unexplained illness in a study participant. Now, again, as most of the market movements appear to have been predicated on good news about vaccines, nothing much has happened there. That is a 60,000 patient clinical trial which has been halted. Well, we'll see about that, but I would like you to consider that. As far as the UK is concerned, we're back to square one. It turns out that we've got 3 tiers of lockdowns, lots of tiers actually, with the other spelling of tiers. We're very unhappy about that. The government scientific advisors apparently told the government on September the 15th better to have what they call a circuit breaker, either a big lockdown, to solve it quite now. But we've got 3 different areas now. Liverpool region, a very high COVID alert, the highest of this new 3-tier system that's been brought in. Most of England, not where I live, fortunately, but most of England will be on a medium alert, and the rule of 6 coming in there. Now, more bad news, I'm afraid. UK unemployment rate risen unexpectedly to 4.5%, an estimated 1.5 million people unemployed, 209,000 more than a year earlier, and it was expected that the unemployment rate would be 4.1%. It isn't; it's 4.5%, and that will probably get much worse as the furlough scheme begins to unwind, and what's planned for small businesses and so on, and most importantly, their eligibility for any kind of money is a source of continuing discussion and angst among that particular very important sector, as I'm sure it is with yours. Day ahead, US inflation figures. We'll see about those, but perhaps slightly more importantly, the JP Morgan Chase Q3 numbers. It's the beginning of the international investment banking reporting season, Q3, particularly in the United States. we're all paused for that, really, and I'll bring you those details when we have them tomorrow. That's your global view.
Okay, Michael, I just quickly want to talk about some things. You talk about the Apple launch. Yeah, the big one coming out, the new range of phones will have 5G technology capacity, and a lot of people are looking, based on the whole brouhaha about 5G, that is the world ready for that now? And it's also going to have the ZP technology on their phone. So a lot of people are looking at that launch very critically. But most importantly, I want to talk about Milton Friedman. Milton Friedman talked a lot about helicopter money in the 70s. And guess what? It looks as though the helicopter money scheme, which is the furlough scheme in the UK, has not worked, which after a scheme that some money was put into, you see having 4% unemployment rate. What if the scheme is taking off finally amidst Brexit negotiations that is not going anywhere for the UK? It is a double whammy, like the Americans are saying. What is happening to the UK economy?
Well, as I've said, unemployment is rising. I don't think that the Brexit negotiations are going nowhere. They're clearly going somewhere. We talked about this yesterday. There may well be a deal right at the end of it, but it is very, very complicated indeed. And I would add to that things are being made very, very difficult indeed for the UK to withdraw from the EU, because the powers that be in the EU do not want to give encouragement to other fringe countries who are seeing a rise in populism against the EU and its dominance by Germany, France, and the other large economies, to make it easy for them to leave as well. So that's that. I think there's a lot of, I'm not saying it's good discussions or bad discussions. I just think they are very, very complicated indeed. But I think little progress is being made. It is quite extraordinarily complicated. As far as helicopter money is concerned, it kind of works. I'm much more in favour, and this is very much against everything I actually personally believe in, but I think that a massive increase in infrastructure, the same thing that happened in the 1930s in the United States, the New Deal, is the way forward, rather than just sticking money in consumers' pockets. Because at the moment, I think if you do that, what they're going to do is save it, because they're not that confident that they will have a job to go to. So Milton Friedman was probably right for his era, but this era is very, very different indeed. And I think that there is plenty of opportunity for online spending, as we'll see in the Amazon Prime thing, and also maybe in the Apple the take-up of the new Apple phone. But I think that people are very much more worried, and I wouldn't guarantee that helicopter money is going to be directly translated into spending into the economy, which is what it's intended for.
All right, thank you so much for that, Michael. For updates on COVID-19 pandemic, Adesua Omora joins us now. Good morning, Adesua.
Good morning.
Good morning, Adesua.
Oh, I can hear you guys. But good morning, Tundun, Dr. Abati, and Rufai. Great to be with you. I'm sitting in for Aron Akerejola.
Yes, it's good to have you. So what do you have for us?
What's the latest when it comes to COVID-19, mortality crisis and infection rates? Well, let's take a look at the global picture this morning. According to the Johns Hopkins University tally, we now have well over 37 million cases of infection. And of course, the US is still leading that pack with about 7.8 million cases, followed by India, Brazil, Russia, and Colombia. On the flip side, if you look at the death rate as well, you have also the US leading that pack with 215,000 deaths. Brazil is in second place. And of course, India is in third place. This is as the WHO has warned that the number of new COVID cases is at its highest level since the start of the pandemic. Speaking at the regular Monday press conference in Geneva, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, the DG of the organization, says that, countries need to do more. And he also said that the idea of herd immunity, according to him, is scientifically and ethically problematic. A lot of people have said, why don't you just let more people get immune, open up countries, open up economies, as a lot of countries, as we know, are dealing with the double whammy, as we like to say, of the health crisis and the economic crisis. So let's move away from that global number picture to somewhere else in the world. Is it less confusing and less counterproductive? That's a question a lot of people are asking, and it depends on who you're speaking to. I'm talking about the UK, the new COVID-19 restriction measures by UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson. He announced the new 3-tier system of restrictions in England, and that new level of restrictions says Liverpool City region facing the tightest restrictions because they've had a surge in infections in the last week. What are the restrictions in these different tiers? Let's try to understand if indeed it is simpler and standardized as the Prime Minister would like it to be. Areas with the lowest rates of infections will be placed in Tier 1, which are also known as the medium. They will face basic national rules currently in force, including pubs, bars, and restaurants closing by 10 p.m. local time. The rule of 6 number of people who can meet up applies both indoors and outdoors. Now, in areas in Tier 2, which is known as the high, they will also face extra level of restrictions, no mixing between different household indoors. The rule of 6 only continues outdoors. Most areas of England which are already subject to local restrictions will be placed in this Tier 2, although some places will face additional restrictions for the first time. And now the final level of restrictions are in Tier 3. Areas where transmission is rising most rapidly will be placed in this category. And like I said, Liverpool, which has recorded 600 cases per 100,000 people in the past week, is in this category. Now, these highest tier areas will have pubs and bars closed. Households cannot mix indoors and outdoors. Gyms, leisure centers, betting shops, and casinos will also close, while shops, schools, and universities will remain open. And that's the confusion for a lot of people. They feel like the gyms and, the betting shops are safer than the shops and the schools and the universities which are being left open. I will leave you to decide if this is any simpler and less confusing as the Prime Minister hopes it will be. And let's go somewhere else. Let's leave the UK. In the US, he is negative and back on the campaign trail. I'm talking about President Donald Trump. According to the White House physician, the president has tested negative on consecutive days using the rapid antigen coronavirus tests. Now, this statement released yesterday coincided with the return of the president to the campaign trail. I don't know if this puts critics who worry about the potential likelihood of these rallies becoming super spreader events at ease at all. But for anyone who saw that Florida campaign yesterday, you would agree that the president was in his full element and the crowd looked like they sure did miss him as he visits more key battleground states this week. Very few people were seen with their mask, and of course there were no social distancing, as we can see on the screen. President Trump, also used the opportunity, of course, to get back at his main challenger, Joe Biden. Some people will say he is playing catch-up game as he has been out of the campaign trail for 10 days.
Anyway, I was just going to make a comment on what is going on in the United Kingdom, where there seems to be a struggle to strike the balance between science and business. Now, the scientists, particularly the ones that are members of the Scientific Advisory Group for Emergencies, they're called SAGE. They've been complaining for weeks that the restrictions do not, in fact, go enough. And the Chief Medical Officer, Professor Charles Whitty, is also saying, look, rather than complain, people in England, particularly North England and Liverpool, should be prepared for even, stricter measures in terms of lockdown. Because in the UK, we've seen the numbers rising in terms of infection. I think the UK at the moment is number 4 in the world. And I see it as some kind of, expression of responsible leadership, that the leadership in the UK is saying we have to act now. Now, Nicola Sturgeon may have handled it better in Scotland. Yes, much better. But it's good to also see Prime Minister Johnson saying that, look, we don't have any other option in this matter. Now, industry leaders, business leaders in the hospitality sector in the UK that is mostly affected, all these pubs, restaurants and all that, hotels, they are threatening to go to court. I don't know whether they go to court, they will be able to make any difference, because this is a national emergency that the UK government needs to deal with.
Arbitrary. I think that's why they have their grouse.
Yeah, they are saying, well, when they go to court, they will compel the government to provide the scientific evidence.
It looks like they're being attacked for no reason.
Yeah.
After the lockdown, they were all allowed to reopen. They invested in making their businesses COVID compliant. Now they're getting locked down again. It seems really unfair because the science does not support this theory that the government is working on, that it's actually hospitality industry, that's the hotspot. It's simply not. So it does seem unfair.
Well, but, the scientists are saying that the government is right and that the government has not even done enough.
Yes. The scientists actually want to go further. But you'll notice Whitty's projections haven't materialized. He was accused of being a prophet of doom because his numbers were so high. Even though the UK's numbers are increasing, it hasn't been to that extent. So the government is right to try and balance, those two interests that you were saying.
But the tough balancing act here in the conversation on COVID and economy has always been, yeah, we want to fight COVID, but how will the economy not suffer too much?
Yes.
And I think the UK needs to learn a great deal as regards how you can balance this out, which is always a very difficult act.
It is.
And it's going round. I was watching DW yesterday, and the Federation of Germany too is trying to clamp down on a couple of areas because of increasing numbers in COVID.
Germany,
Spain. So
France,
it's a tough
Czech
one
Republic.
for everyone across board. So we need to be very careful here, most importantly.
Those are the COVID-19 updates at this time.
Well, we were discussing the situation in the UK and how the government and the people are trying to balance their options in dealing with the spike in infections. But as for the United States, there's a lot to say about that, but I find it instructive, and maybe we can learn from that, the fact that we're briefed on a daily basis about the health status of the American president.
Yeah.
If it were here, everything would be shrouded in secrecy.
I can imagine, Doctor. Tell me more about that, all right?